Maintaining your identity is extremely important. Maintaining your identity is extremely important. What's even more important is first understanding who you are and getting clear on your identity. The reason I'm emphasizing the importance of maintaining who you are is that in various spaces that you step in, circumstances and situations change, right? You may be right here financially, or you may be right here socioeconomically, or with regard to your level of influence and impact. But at some point, you could be right here, and in not so long, you could end up like way up here. But the question is, the common denominator is you and your identity. I came across this clip that just circulated recently, and it's with Larussell and Gary Vaynerchuk. So Larussell is a dope artist out of the Bay Area. And Gary Vaynerchuk has been this marketing, voice that's been on social and all around for probably the last 15, almost 20 years now. And Larussell was an independent artist who just signed a deal with one of the major record labels. And so he's now not just doing it himself. He now has an engine behind him to propel him further than he's already gone. Gary Vaynerchuk, this marketing guy, this guy who's, been kind of the marketing whisperer, so to speak, for the last 20 years, he was telling Larussell, or giving him some insight on basically staying who you are as situations and circumstances change. I want you to hear this clip, and then we'll come back and chime in, okay?
Hey, listen to me. These next 5 years are going to be the hardest. Because now it happened. These next 5 years, bro, are going to be the hardest. Do you understand?
Yeah.
This is where you got to stay. You got to stay in the same place you've been. When everyone's going to tell, bro, the hardest part isn't when there's 5 people at the show. The hardest part is when there's 5 million at the show and you believe that.
Oh, they're doing it. Man.
You understand?
Yes.
If you ever need a reset, a grounding, a dinner, a time.
So basically, what Gary Vaynerchuk said, the hardest is not when there are 5 people there. The hardest is when there's 5 million people there, because now your identity is going to get challenged, right? Do you believe who you are? Do you believe who you were created to be? It's easy to believe that when the stakes are lower, when it's just a few people in the room, but now all the attention's on you. Can you hold true to who you are? Can that thing that got you there, can you trust in that enough to continue carrying you forward? Because, it used to be this saying that I heard circulate a long time, and it was, what got you here won't take you there, right? Meaning that you're going to have to do something different to go from here to there. And it's interesting, the more I dive into identity, I don't necessarily know if that's the truth. The more I have conversations and build relationships with people from different walks of life, I don't know if that's true. There's been this perspective that, behind the veil or at certain levels, people are just operating so different. There is this perspective that at certain universities, if you go Ivy League or these high tier, really exclusive universities, the students are just so much more, so much smarter, and they're just so much more well prepared. But it's fascinating when you have conversations and you connect with people from all walks of life, you start to understand that there's not a whole lot that separates everyone. Yes, some people are operating in this space or that space, but the level in which they're operating is not always that different. And just because a person has a lot of attention, just because a person has a lot of wealth, just because a person has a lot of worldly success, does not mean that they're necessarily better than the person who hasn't made it yet. You could probably go to some open mic nights and listen to an acoustic guitar performance from somebody nobody's ever heard of, and you would be like, yo, that person is amazing. You might even sit down and realize that that person, from their skill set, might run circles around some of your favorite artists. So what separates them from the one who's already quote unquote made it? See, that's the thing. And again, that old statement of what got you here is not going to take you there. On a personal level, I'm starting to question that. And I think from the standpoint of identity, I don't even know if I believe that anymore. I truly believe that who you are is enough, and your gift will make room for you. And one of the challenges we all face is losing our identity as we ascend into different places. Because as we go to different places, we assume that the people are different, but they got the same issues that everybody else has. Like, they might not have issues with money, but they still have relationship challenges. They still have challenges with their health. They still have challenges with, dealing with this or dealing with that. And the reality is there's really no separation. The whole point of it is, do you have the ability, or do you have the courage and the confidence to lean into who you are, fully believe it, and stick with that as you navigate? Because no matter what space or circumstance you find yourself in, the common denominator in all of those spaces is you. If you are enough to get there, that means you're enough to stay there. But you have to, again, be able to understand who you are, who you're not, and be able to walk in it, and walk in it with confidence and purpose. So this wisdom from Gary V to Larussell, I think, is spot on, and it's something we need to talk a lot more about, because we prepare young folks, for what's coming, and we think that, oh, you're going to have to do this and do that. But I think we need to spend more time preparing folks who are on their come up. We need to spend more time preparing them to understand how to leverage and use who they are in the spaces that they navigate, because who they are is the true value proposition. Who you are is enough. You need to lean into it and realize that if it got you here, more than likely it's enough to take you there. Just stay in purpose, stay on purpose, and stay aligned with your true identity. Yo, y'all be blessed, well, and wise, man. Everything about my content is really helping you to become the quarterback of your mindset. And as you start to do that, as you start to really understand who you are, most importantly, whose you are, everything else unlocks. And then you can navigate through this life at an amazing level, and let's have some fun in the process. So as always, y'all leave some comments. Let me know what you think about this. What are your thoughts? I'd love to hear them. Share this thing out. And until next time, y'all be blessed, well, and wise. And I'll holler at you. Peace.